All right, ACT. We're going to do fractions, decimals, and statistics right here. So it looks like this. Okay, and so it said, this is an interesting question. I'm going to have to show you my calculator because the first one is pretty simple, right? It's like, what's 5/11? So if I put that into my calculator, 5 divided by 11, I get 0.4545, and it continues on. And so it said, what would be the 100th digit? Well, I can see that this is my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So all the evens are 5. And so that's why we're going to say 5. Moving on to the next one. Again, you can use just the square root of 1 divided by 0.25, like that. And we could get 2. Or if you like, you can do the square root and then again that alpha, y equals enter, and it'll make it a pretty print if you like it to look like that. Either way, same answer. But so the answer's 2, but they didn't give us that. So you would have to see that right here. 1 is less than 2 is less than 3, like that. Sometimes they do that. Okay, so last time we talked about what does that mean? So I'm going to give you just a second to think about what's repeated there. Is the 3 repeated? Is the 3 and 6 repeated, or just the 6? Okay, so I hope you said 0.36666666 like that, right? That's what that line means, is it's over the 6. I can hear my voice is so tired. So it's 5 in the morning. It's the only time my kids are quiet. So math, enter. So you can see I put it all the way across the screen, and so I got 11/30, which is the correct answer. But again, if you only put in 0.36 math, enter, you're going to get it, 0.36 math, enter, you're going to get a very different answer, 9/25. So please be careful when you're doing that. And then of course this one, the temptation is for you to write it down, but you're taking a very high stakes math test. Just put in the calculator, get the right answer, and move on. Yes, we could line up the decimals and all that, but it's just not necessary. Okay. All right, so here, what I would typically do is teach you guys the reminders of how to do this, and then I would show you in your calculator. So the reminder is, when we have to add or subtract a fraction, we must have a common denominator. Okay, so I would have to multiply this by 4 and get 12/16 plus 1/16 is 13/16. But the truth is, no one cares. No one cares on the ACT if you know how to do finding a common denominator or not. They care that you can do it quickly and accurately. So I tend to use parentheses. Do you have to? No. Let's look at it. There's without the parentheses, right? Same answer. I personally like to use parentheses because it helps me to see that I put it in 3/4 plus 1/16 and I didn't mess up. Here, there's a little bit more unknown, right? Okay, so then you would go through and do 2/5 plus 1/10. Math and enter, of course, would be a half. All right, and then I want you to do that one on your own. 1/4 plus 1/2. Use your calculator. And then right here, again, this is old school. And sometimes the ACT brings up things that we haven't seen in a while. So I want to show you again, 2 1/5. Wow, that was a really pretty 2. You're going to, technically, we used to do this little symbol, right? So times and plus. So 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11/5. So technically that's 11/5. And again, if I went around here, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7/4. And then I could put in right here 11/5 plus 7/4 math inner excuse me. So 79/20ths. But here's a cool thing. Again, when we used to do alpha y equals enter, oops, sorry, that was a pretty print, right? Cooper. Like that. But you can also do alpha y equals, and then see right there it says unit. So if I go down to 2, ooh, I can do 2 1/5 plus alpha y equals down enter 1 3/4. And so that also gives me 7/20ths. And that's really fast if you know what you're doing. Let's go ahead and do the next one. So alpha y equals down enter. I would really encourage you to try this yourself. Remember, we have that calculate 84. Here, let me write that down. Calculate 84. That's an app. It's a free app in the Apple and Android that can help you do your math, because it's going to give you this calculator. Okay, and so this one's 41/10, and again, I want you to do this next one. And these next 3, I would like you to try them yourself. But here's the answer. So if you need to pause and then look back, you can. So you should have 5/6, 17/18, and 43/4. Okay. All right, so moving forward here. So that's adding and subtracting, where we have to have a common denominator. However, if it's multiplying, you can see right here's my notes. You can just go straight across. So if I go straight across here, 1 times 5 is 5, and 2 times 4 is 8, and I'm done. 1 times 5 is 5, 4 times 3 is 12, done. Then we get to problems like this, where we've got 2 times 11, which is what, 110 and 18, but we can see that those are both even, so I can reduce those. So way back, we used to do things like this, where if I can cut that in half, that's 5, cut half in 3, and so that's 55/9. Or again, you can always use that calculator to do 10/3. Oops, sorry. 10/3 times 11/6 math inner. No, hold on, sorry. Math inner, and it would also give us 55/9. So use your calculator. This is just for quickness, but it doesn't help if you get the wrong answer, right? We want to get the right thing. Okay, and then right here we would keep it, change it, flip it. So we would do 1/6 times 11/8 and then go across, and that would be 11/48. I give you a second. I usually do, and I tell you guys to put in your calculator really quick and show that you can do it. Okay, so you should have 11, 1, 3/13, 16/11, 49/45. And I guess I'll go up here and check that you did it. You should have had 3/4 and 2. Okay. So typically I have my students do this as an assignment, but you guys are at home doing everything on your own. I suggest you do it, but if you don't want to, then please write do not do. I'll allow it. So I did a little bit of pre-work here. You guys don't have this on your paper, but I was trying to make this part go a little bit faster for you guys. But when we're trying to do factoring, what we know is that we have x times x would make x squared, and then 1 and 35, 5 and 7 multiply to 35. So we want it to multiply to here, to the third term, or the c. Do you guys remember that? The ax squared plus bx plus c. Again, please forgive me, it's super early. That c term, we want it to multiply, and then because these are same signs, it's going to add up to 12. Okay, so 1 and 35 would be 36. 5 plus 7 is 12, so we would use 5 and 7. X and X, both signs are plus. Well, this symbol says same signs, and if that was a minus, both sides would be minus. Anywho, so these are my multiples of 30. I want it to be 13, and so that would be 3 plus 10. Number 3, there's only 1 times 7 because it is prime. Remember that? I would typically say, do you know what that's called again? Anyways, and then 14 is 2 and 12. Okay, I would like you to take a minute to try these yourself if you want. Here's you could pause it right there where it has all those numbers, but I want you to try it in factor, just the simple factors. Okay, hopefully you paused and tried it. So again, we have x plus, and we want to make 8, and so that's 2 and 6. Notice that we had 30 again. We had 30 over here and 30 over here, but this time instead of 13, they went to be 17. So that's why we have to use 2 and 15. All right, another 24, but we went 4 and 6 this time. And then 36, 3 and 12. Okay, and again, usually I would work through this with my students. You can practice it some more, but it's not really something that you have to do. As long as you can multiply forward, you can do that. And then for sure, 27 through 30, I usually only make my honor students take care of that, so I would not recommend that. However, if you do it, here's the answers for those top ones, for the left side, and for the right side. You can pause that if you want to dive into that. Okay, going on to the homework now, or the ACT practice, I guess. So we would go over these. Right here, statistics is mean, which means the average. So if you remember, it's like when we add up the total and we divide by however many there is. Median, we have to put it in order from least to greatest, like this, and it's the middle number. Most occurring, mode, means it's whatever repeats, and range is the highest minus the lowest. So right here, it says that these are my monthly payments, and what's the mean, which means I'm going to add them up. If I add them up, I'd get 1710. Divide by 5 is 342. Oh, I should have had you guys pause and try it yourself. Sorry. Looking at this next one, though, it is a challenging question. There's a lot going on. So maybe you pause right here and you take 2 minutes to try to get through all 4 of them. Okay, hopefully you did. So right here it says Karen's math class, final class is determined by a combination of quiz, homeworks, and tests. And this is how everything is, at least in my class, right? Quizzes aren't the same as homework. In my secondary math 3 class, my quizzes are only, what, 23%? Homework's 12%, and then test is 65%, just like all the rest of your secondary math 3 classes. Right here this says quizzes make up 30% of the grade. So right here I'm going to write quiz 30%. And it says she received a 92 and an 83 on her quiz. On her 2 quizzes. So if I did 92 plus 83 divided by 2, the average is an 87.5. And because that makes up 30% of her grade, I'd multiply that by 0.30. Remember how we talked about percentages? And so that would be 26.25. Next portion says her homework is 25. So homework is 25%. On her, she scored 100% on all three. That means her average is 100. I mean, you could go through and do 100 plus 100 plus 100 divided by 3, but you're still going to get 100. And then times 25%. So, oops, not plus, times 25. And you would get 25, of course. And then the last one says that her test is worth 45. So test is 45, so she's got these three. So we've got 78, 89, and 98. We find the average by dividing by 3, and we'd get 88.3. And then we'd multiply that 0.45, and we get 39.74. This is what happens. This is what we have to do whenever you guys turn in late work after the term's over, is we get to do all this fun math. So please don't do that. Okay. So you get 90.99, or she would get a 91 in my class. I would round that up. Okay, looking at the next one, it says, what's the median? Again, median means we have to put them in order. So my personal opinion is, if you can, to write underneath the numbers so that you don't have to count and say, did I get all the numbers correct? Now, with my handy dandy marker right here, this is kind of making it squishy, but at least I know that I have all the same numbers. So I would take the first and the last, first, last, first, last. 42 is the median. I do have students that say, what about if it's even? Perfect, that's the next question. What would be the median of this set? So again, first, last, there's no middle numbers. So what we do is we take these two numbers. You know between 8 and 10 is 9, but what you could do is you could add them together, cut it in half. And that's not what this question is really asking. It says, what's the difference between the mean? Mean means to add these up, and if I add them up, I would get 36. Divided by 4 is 9. What's the difference between the mean, 9, this 9, and the median, this 9? And so the key word here is difference. Difference means to subtract. So 9 minus 9 is 0. So a common mistake is students would put 9 there because they want to, both the answers are 9, but that's not what it's asking. And then the last one down here, I'm going to show you the long way than the shortcut, okay? The way I used to teach it was, you've got 4 numbers, so you got W, X, Y, and Z. Divide by 4. Its mean is some number. Pick a number. We would say, some, I don't know, 8. And we'd say, all right, we want to take those numbers, increase the mean by 2. How much would it, would the sum of the 4 numbers have to increase? So I'd have to say something in this W, X, Y, Z block divided by 4 again, and I want it to be 2 bigger. So 8 plus 2 makes 10. See, that's really complicated because right here, 8 times 4 is 32, 4 times 10 is 40, so the difference between these is 8, which isn't super hard, right? If we put an 8 here, that would help settle it. But I had a student that said, Cooper, it always is true. Whatever our mean is, if we want to increase it, we can just multiply those together. 4 times 2 is 8. I've checked it. It works for all the ACT questions I've ever worked through. So I highly recommend it. All right, we're going to get into our next set here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 problems. I want you to give yourself 3 minutes. Stop and time it. Okay, I am going to have to not use marker anymore, at least on the front page. You can see it all the way through, and I don't have another copy of this. I'm so sad. Okay, hopefully you paused because it says question, because these are not helpful for me to go through unless you've tried them yourself, okay? You really need to pause. Okay, So it says these are consecutive. Consecutive means like 1, 2, 3, consecutive. Next numbers, right? 11, 12, 13. And it says of ABC, and so this is a lot of variables, right? So you would just put it in. It says what is the value of B? Well, B is that middle number. Whatever. So B is that middle number. So if 30 was the middle number, then it would be 29 and 30 and 31, which adds up to 90, not 96, so that one's wrong. If I use 31, 31 would be my middle number, so 30 plus 31 plus 32, that's 93. We're getting closer, but not it. So 32 would go right here, so 31 plus 32 plus 33 is 96, so that's the correct answer. Obviously, you would use your calculator, and you wouldn't need to write it all out. No one's checking your work on the ACT. They're just checking that you are doing it correctly. Okay, I call this the pregnant problem. It's actually called a composite, and unfortunately, the state of Utah has taken it out of freshman level math, and we don't see it again, so it's a real bummer. But basically this says that we want to put 1 into G. So here's G. If I put 1 in, do you guys remember I showed you how you can put that in your calculator? I mean, you should know that that's the absolute value of -4, which is 4. But again, if you've forgotten, you can hit math right enter, and it would do absolute values 1 minus 5, and it would tell you it's 4. Okay, so we've got that this G of 1 is 4, and so what this says now is we're going to put 4 into F. So if I put 4 into F, 4 cubed plus 1, so my calculator, 4 cubed plus, gotta get out of there, plus 1 is 65. Okay, the next one says you have a large, medium, and small books in the ratio of 7, 6, 3, and there's a total of 32, so that makes me want to know, well, what's that total? So 7 plus 6 plus 3 is 16. If I double that, I'm to 32. So if this is 16 and I double it, 14, 12, 6 is 32, like it says. How many small books? Small books would be 6. It's so yucky right here. I'm so sorry. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'll do pin on the next one. Okay, so it says DE is parallel to the segment BC, okay, and then it says all these numbers, which they already have. They have a 6, they have a 4, they have a 9, and they say what is EC, excuse me. So it should look something like that. So personally, I would set it up as 6 is to 9 as 4 is to what? You could have also said 6 is to 4 as 9 is to x, 6 is to 4, left is to right, left is to right. It doesn't matter. Either way, we're going to get 6x equals 30, oh my gosh, yeah, 36. And then I would divide both sides by 6 and get 6. All right, the next one's a lot of words, but it says that we have a marketplace shirt is $25. During 1 week, the store sells M shirts. So 25 and M go together. And then it says that there's a markdown, or N is discount, and it's 25% of the shirt. So I would do 25 times 0.25. That doesn't mean my shirt's now $6.25. That's the discount. So 25 minus that tells me that my shirt is now $18.75, and that's N. So I'm looking first of all which one have that together. So it's not these bottom two. And it says which of the following is the expression of the average. Average means I add it up and divide. So I'm going to add up and divide. So there's no division here. And it says nothing about doubling the shirts. So that's why it's going to be that first one. And last one right here. Although a lot of you would subtract the 2, and it's not going to be the worst thing here, I would not, because do you see that x is on the left on all these? So you don't want to do extra work. Let's just move that 5x over and get negative 3x plus 3 is greater than negative 6. And then because it says plus 3, we're going to subtract 3 on both sides. So negative 3x is greater than negative 9. And then right here, here's a rule that they're checking you. Do you remember what happens when we divide by a negative 3? When we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to switch the direction of this sign. So it's no longer greater than, it's now less than, and negative divided by negative is still positive 3. So x is less than 3 would be this one. Okay. Moving on. Again, I'm going to use pen on this one so that we can actually see all the questions. I'm so sorry. So right here, you got 5 questions. I would suggest 3 minutes. So in that 3 minutes, I want you to aim to get 3 correct. You don't have to get them all correct. You just have to get like half and you get a 21. Okay, pause. Okay, I hope you did it. Here we go. Using a pen. Here we go. And maybe a pencil. Okay, so it says Mr. Jones plans to drive this many miles, and 660 miles at an average of 60. Okay, so if he did 660 miles over 60 miles per hour, that would be 11 hours. So if you've never done this before, if I did miles divided by miles per hour, I'd have to keep it, change it, flip it. So miles times, keep, change, flip, hours over miles, and so that's why the miles cancel out. Okay, all right, so it says, all right, so he'd get there in 11 hours, but it says how many miles per hour faster does this average need to be if he wants to reduce his total time by 1 hour? So instead of being there in 11 hours, he wants to be there in 10. 11 minus 1 is 10. And so if I do that 660 divided by 10, of course that's 66, but that's not the answer, right? It's saying how many miles per hour faster. So he was going 60, he needs to go 66, so 66 minus 60 is 6. Lots of 6's on this assignment. Okay, the next one, it's actually a freshman concept. So if I have 2m minus n equals 4, and then n plus 2n equals 12. So it's a freshman concept, but it's one that freshmen don't really like. So it's understandable if you don't. But I just want to get these, I want to get these two m's to be the same. So I can multiply this equation by 2 and it will stay the same. 2m plus 4n equals 24. And then I could plug that underneath here. 2m plus 4n equals 24. And then I can add them, subtract them, because I want 2m minus 2m. Right here, this is now negative 1 minus 4 would be negative 5. And 4 minus 24 is, negative 20. And then I would divide both sides by negative 5. And n is 4. Okay, what's it asking? It's asking us to figure out which column's bigger. Well, all I did was find out that that's 4. That's a bummer. So I guess I have to figure out what m is as well. So you can put in either equation. This one just looks prettier for some reason to me. M plus 2, and instead of an n, I'm going to put in 4. M plus 8 equals 12. And when I subtract the 8, I get m is also 4. Okay, so if I put it over here, 4 plus 4 squared, 4 plus 4 is 8, squared is 64. 64 is larger or greater than 61, and so that's why the answer is going to be this top answer right here. That's a mess. I hope you would skip that one, right? So whenever I said you got 3 minutes to get 3 correct, the first one, okay. The second one, way too much work, way too much time. You either star it or circle it. Even if you know how to do it, you really need to get going. Don't get stuck on this question. All right, let's look at number 3. So these are all cattywampus because I got them off the internet. Okay, I'm just getting them off of ACT practice sites for you. It says the length of a rectangle is 4 times its width. So if I got width, I've got 4 widths, 4 times the width. The area is 16 square inches. What's the length? So area is length times width. So I would do W times 4W. I should have switched that, whatever. It's 4W squared, right? And if 4W squared equals 16, they're asking you for what's the length. So be careful. We're going to divide by 4. W squared equals 4. The only way to get rid of a square is take the square root. So W is 2, but that's not what they asked for. They said, what's the length? So 4 times 2 is 8. Be careful, that 2 is there, right? So we want to make sure we're answering the question. Hey, it's another pregnant problem. I'm going to have to use my marker. So this says plug 2 into F. So here's F. If I plug 2 in, I get 2 squared plus 2. 2 squared is 4 plus 2 is 6. But then it says, do it again. See right here? So now that's 6. So I'm going to do F of 6. So I'm going to do 6 squared plus 2. 36 plus 2 is 38. So that's why it's 38. Go back to your pen, Cooper. Okay, so here it is, right? What's the factored form of this? Right? And so you're like, oh, that's a tough one. Now, if we would have worked through, you would have known that this is different signs. The only way to get a negative is to have a different sign, a positive times a negative. So the first thing we would do is eliminate any of them that are the same. So it can't be either of those. And then I would just multiply to see which one works. Right? First of all, this one says 2 times 2, which is 4. So it can't be that one because this one says 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And so the rest of these work, we're just looking at the signs. So right here, we would do the outside and say negative 3x plus 4x gives me a positive 1. Negative 2x plus 6x gives me a 4x for the middle term. So let's see, it says positive 1, so that's why I want this one. Okay, we're getting to that last set here. I may have to just do it in pieces anyways, because this is too long. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, again, 3 minutes. We're shooting to get 3 correct, okay? And pause. Okay, hopefully you did it. So, right here, it says, if x squared minus nx minus 32 is x equals 4, what's the value of n? This is very deep, okay, because you've got to have to know a few things. If it's x equals 4, first of all, that's one of the answers. So that means I need 4 times something to be 32, and we should know it's 8. Okay? And then if it's x equals 4, we should know that its root is x minus 4. If we did the opposite, right, if x minus 4 equals 0, we would add 4 and get x equals 4. So we know that. This right here tells me it's different signs. So that means that I have to have x plus 8. And so if I multiply that together, I'd get x squared plus 8x minus 4x minus 32 is x squared plus 4x minus 32. But you're looking at here and you're like, but that says a negative. Okay, but I want a positive. So it would have to be negative 4 to make that positive 4. So negative 4 is the answer. Ooh, that one's tricky. The next one says, how many solutions does F equal G? And how many places are they equal? You could do a couple different things. I personally think of graphing, which I know you guys don't love, but here it is. So again, here's the absolute value, which should look like a V. And then we have the quadratic, or the parabola, which looks like this. So we've got 1, 2, 3 points of contact. Again, you could put that into your calculator and let it do it for you, because remember, we know how to do that now. We do math right, enter, and we can do the absolute value of x, and then we can do x squared, and we can hit graph. So we could see it looks like that, and right there, you would just have to not forget your origin. You could even hit second table and see that they're the same right there. 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. Woo, fancy. Okay, moving on to the next one. It's going to ask you to find the mode, the median, and the average. So first of all, you should have put them in order, and I should have already done that, but I didn't. So here we go. -5, -2, 0, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Sorry, math jokes. Okay, so first of all, we can see that 0 is our mode. And then we go through and find our median. It's right there. And so our median has to be 3. And then our average, if we add those up, we would get 32. And there's 10 numbers, so it's 3.2 for the average. Or the mean, sorry. And so the mean is bigger than the median is bigger than the mode. So it's actually in this order. So I want mode, median, average. So that's why it's going to be that top one. Okay, this one stumped me the first time I did it because I was doing kind of some stupid stuff. But you've got A and B. A leaves, car leaves from A going 20 miles an hour. So I'm going to start that as 0 plus 20x. But you have to realize that B is 100 miles away and they're going to come this way at 60 miles an hour. So we have to say starting at 100, coming in or subtracting at 60x. All right, here we go. So I would get my x's together first by adding 60x. And so I've got 80x equals 100. And then I would divide both sides by 80. And so x equals 1.25. So we know we have an hour. So it's not either of those. So 0.25. 0.25 is actually like 1 1/4. And then an hour, 1/4 of an hour, 1/4 of an hour is 15 minutes. And so that's why it's that top one. Okay, last one is back to that m plus n question, right? So I've got this x plus 4y equals 6, and I've got x minus 2y equals 3. And so since they're the same, I can subtract them. So, but this says 4 minus negative 2 is actually plus, so that's why it's 6y, and 6 minus 3 is 3. And then when I divide by 6, y equals 1/2. So that's there. It says, which of the following is not true? So right here I could say, well, no, sorry. So this one is true. So this one has to be false. But let's go ahead and prove why the rest of them are true. If I were to put in that 1/2 into y, it doesn't really matter. We'll do the positive one though. So if I put in x plus 4 times 1/2, half of 4 is 2, x plus 2 is 6, and so x is 4. That one's also true. And then it says, what's x times y? Well, 4 times 1/2 is 2, and so that's why that one's true. And then we got to add them. So again, we don't want to deal with common denominators, so you do 1/2 plus 4. Math, inner, and it gives me 9/2, so that's why that one's true. So it'd have to be the middle one. All right, that's in for that third lesson. See you next time.